the hammer has come back down because now Everytown, after successfully getting Glock to redesign their firearms, they're going after Ruger, who has a clone, the RXM, which I love. I think it's a fantastic firearm. And I think we asked this question: what about Ruger? What about PSA? What about Shadow Systems? What about all these other companies? And yet now we see that, now that the Mike Bloomberg backed Everytown is going after Ruger, especially for producing the RXM, which is interesting because this is the latest model, guys. Shadow Systems has existed forever. PSA has been on the books for a lot longer than they have. Yet it's funny that they're going after Ruger. And where is the end line on this when these type of groups have this inch? And that was the thing that myself and a lot of other people were kind of heavily sighing about when this was passed, because now it's great. The biggest manufacturer, whatever, you can argue about who's the biggest manufacturer, but the most well-known is Glock, just because of films and propaganda and so forth. They bend the knee, even if they don't mean to. Now the door is open. And so Ruger's on the table, Shadow Systems, everybody's on the table, Trad. And so, this will have huge effects within the gun industry. And it's really going to take one of these companies to stand up. I don't think Ruger's going to stand up. I think Ruger will do something about it. But your thoughts, Trad, when you see this article, now that Glock gave up, now they're going after Ruger. And once Ruger does, they'll go after PSA or Shadow Systems or whoever.
Yeah, for sure. And when we talked about the Glock story, a couple weeks back, I was saying I think it was pragmatic for Glock. I think it was a bending of the knee, but hey, they had to do what they needed to do from all the legal pressure they were facing, the many lawsuits in these states, right? It was pretty weak, though. Honestly, I mean, the fact that they bended the knee, made these changes, discontinued these models to appease people who are going to continue to attack them. And like you said, and like we discussed, all the clones are now on the chopping block as well. Because what are they clones of? They're clones of all the models that Glock discontinued, right? That are largely parts compatible, have very easily, easy aftermarket parts supply for them. If not OEM Glock parts, then very similar aftermarket parts. But Ruger being next on the chopping block, I think it's a very sad thing. I haven't shot the RXM. I can't speak to its reliability there, but if it's a Glock clone of any kind of quality, it's going to be pretty decent. Um, but in that whatever in the Everytown article, they even said while we are not aware of any public reports to date of modified Ruger RXMs recovered in connection with the crime, it is almost certainly only a matter of time, given the rising popularity of these conversion kits. So they admit in the article itself that there's no there's no there's no evidence that any of these RXM pistols have been converted to machine guns, but they're already ahead of the game, right? We talked about this. They're ahead of the game. They got their foot in the door with Glock, one of the largest gun manufacturers in the world, especially in the US, and they said if we can get them to bend the knee, who else can we get on the chopping block? And so we'll see what happens. I don't think Ruger is going to be able to withstand if the pressure that they put on Glock is in any way comparable to what they plan to do or are doing to Ruger right now. I think Ruger's going to fold, and I
Yeah.
think many other companies are going to fold under that same amount of pressure. And again, to these companies' credits, is it pragmatic to change your lineup, do a switch up, do a remake of whatever models you have to avoid these lawsuits? Yeah, it's pragmatic. Yeah, it's smart for you to not lose your company over it, right? I think it's pragmatic in that way, but again, you're setting a precedent in which you're bending the knee to leftist activists, lobbying groups who hate the Second Amendment, people who don't want US citizens to own guns, period, right? And
Mhm.
they're doing this as a method to just push that need a little further, just get a little bit more ground, and eventually you see this over a couple decades worth of time, we'll have nothing left, honestly. So that's my thoughts on it.
I'm going to give a huge credit to Daniel in our audience for bringing this up, Joe, and I want you to kind of jump on this. BlackRock is the second largest investor in Ruger. I believe Vanguard is the second largest investor in Smith and Wesson as well. So you have these companies that have huge investments in the gun industry. And of course, that's going to be a problem coming down the line. Your thoughts on the fact that, you know, the enemy, for lack of a better term, has a foot in the door with these gun companies, and your thoughts on what happened with the whole bending of the knee to the gun groups.
Yeah, and I'm glad Daniel brought up that point. I mean, again, BlackRock, your Vanguards. I mean, they're going to have they do they have a foothold in basically every company that gets started up and is successful, and it's not just the gun industry. I remember back whenever they bought out Rouse. You know, I can't remember if it was them or Vanguard who bought them out, but you know, they took a really good company, they made a really good product, it had really clean ingredients, and they were like, we're not going to change up the recipe, but they did. They did. It's not no longer pure olive oil that you get with it. Now you're getting these cut olive oils that are now making their way in there to increase profits. And that's what they do. They come in here and they're going to control your board. They're the investor. Hey, we have all this money in your company, so you need to do and you need to bend the knee. And of course, the company's going to be at the mercy of these big investment companies. So, you know, I mean, really, our biggest bet we can do is hope that there will be additional manufacturers that'll come out there and won't sell out to these companies. But unfortunately, the money that gets put on the table to buy and to acquire, you know, the shareholding, the controlling interest of these groups, it's very tempting for anybody to turn that kind of money down. You know, and as long as these companies, like I said, look at BlackRock, look at all of their holdings. And I was an investment banker for JP Morgan Chase, you know, and Vanguard and these different mutual funds that we used to sell. I mean, they're so heavily diversified there, but they have their hands in little. If there's a commercial on TV, bet that they have a stake in those products. Same thing at the grocery store. Anything that's at eye level, you can bet that Vanguard and BlackRock and all these big companies, all these big investment groups, they have a hand in it. And unfortunately, we are going this. The floodgates are open. The floodgates are open. It's open season now, and unfortunately for our side, is there's not much pushback.
Yeah, exactly. Angel will get his stuff taken care of. But this idea that and I think this kind of speaks back to what we kind of settled on, where we in the gun community, we think the guys that make the guns are on the same side as we are, when in the end they're just a business. And so I'm going to go to our resident prepper, not Daniel, Angel, that as the guy who's our prepper and things like that, would this concern you with getting Rugers? Because let's be fair, this kind of stuff will impact California, maybe New York, but any of us that live in more freer states will be fine. It's not going to impact us in that big of a deal. But would that impact you and, you know, Angel, when you're thinking about, okay, what kind of guns, you know, I want a pistol. Should I get a Ruger? Or should I get a Smith & Wesson? Or should I get a gun that has, you know, backing of such multinational corporations, or should I try to stick more local? Does that impact you, or would you think of that in any way? I think you might be muted again. Yeah, you might be. But the whole point of that is, I don't know. I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would, because I don't live in a state that really impacts me in that regard. Of course, with us, we already have them, so it's not like we're gonna have to worry about that. What do you think, Angel? I think he still might be.
Yeah, you still might be muted. I'll jump in here for a quick second while he's getting his audio thing worked on. You know, the thing is that it's going to impact. It's going to impact. I know I'm going to think more about it, because, you know, what if I need replacement parts in the future? You know, replacement parts are a big deal. You know, and Glock has already said, "Oh, we're going to continue to make, you know, parts for a certain amount of time." It's just like they've done with vehicles. Now, the older the vehicle, after a while, they stop manufacturing parts. You know, and you know that's one of the reasons I got rid of my Nissan NV 3500 Trad aircraft carrier. You know, they discontinued it, and they're like, "Well, we're only going to Nissan's like we're only going to make parts for like 8 more years, and then we're going to stop making parts from it." And then you're stuck with, you know, going to salvage yards looking for parts. It's going to be basically the same thing here. You know, and I don't know what this is going to do. I mean, what this ultimately probably is going to do is it's going to create some sort of underground black market of parts that are going to be out there. Like I said, the gun community is going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out. Workarounds, end arounds to hopefully get around these sort of draconian laws that we're going to be dealing with from here on out. And I'm glad with the innovation of 3D printing and stuff like that. You can still get stuff done if you have the means to do it. And if you don't have these sorts of things and you have the extra money lying around, you may want to make investments, in those areas to be able to, get your own replacement parts as these things get phased out.
Yeah, exactly. And let's go to this question from Bellator here. Worried about some kind of smart gun that I've talked about it back in my days of Catholic radio. It already exists, guys. There is a gun on the market. And there are certain states. I know New Jersey has a law in the books that once this gun becomes mass market, once they have the ability to mass produce it, like in New Jersey, the gun stores are going to be required to carry it and make sure it's offered to every single one and make sure it's most of the inventory. So this is one of those bio guns that it only reads your fingerprints and all these other kinds of sci-fi nonsensical things that are out there. So these things are actually on the table, much like Joey correctly said with the electric cars and how even though the vast majority of people have rejected the idea of electrification just because it's, if you live in a city, fine, great. I don't even have a problem with Teslas and electric cars in general. I always have a problem with people pushing those ideas on people. If you want a car, go get an electric car. I don't care. But when it's like you need to drive one, now we have a problem, homie, because then, don't tell me I have to drive a Cybertruck. I'm not doing it. But this idea is, oh, well, I could see within 5 to 10 years, Bellator, to answer your question, bio smart guns are the only ones by law. You can have your Second Amendment. Absolutely, guys. This is your option. This is the way you can exercise your Second Amendment. And everybody that's looking at this gun right now, either live or in the replay, and everybody on this panel is like, yeah, that gun's going to have like an update at 2 a.m. and it's not going to work. If it's like my iPhone, and it's like I need you right now, and it's gonna go, I can't do that, Dave, as the guy's like breaking through the door. So
yeah, I mean, and who's to say that there's not going to be some sort of Wi-Fi enabled thing where the government can say, hey, guess what? You can't use your gun. There's a national emergency right now, and you can't use your gun.
Or what about
your
the
gun's
fact,
in airplane mode? Yeah, there you go. Your gun's in airplane mode. Oh, now you don't have your gun anymore. It doesn't work.
How about this, guys? What if it's tied to your social credit score?
Woo.
Oh, yeah.
What if it's
you don't have enough social credit? Looks like you can't defend yourself. That's pretty draconian. That's insidious. I mean, my phone has those thumbprint, fingerprint unlock. That's unreliable even on the best of days. Okay. Yeah. When the police are minutes away and I have this BioFire smart gun on my bedside table and I needed to read my bio data in order for me to use it properly, how long is that going to take, right? When seconds matter, when I need it now, right, to defend myself, defend my family, my property, etc. And the thing is it's on an update, or it doesn't work, or it doesn't read my thumb properly because I didn't wash my hands or whatever. Any number of things could go wrong. So for us gun guys, the practicality of this whole design, this smart gun design, it doesn't make sense. It's incoherent, right? Because the main purpose of a firearm is to defend yourself when you need it, not after it scans your thumb or after it reads your bio data or after it updates, right? When you need your firearm, you need your firearm. So, and again, you could easily push this into that draconian era idea of, well, now this gun's connected to your Wi-Fi and it's connected to your social credit score and it's connected to your, all these other things, your facets of life that you don't even think about. And, heck, who's to say if you make a spicy post on X, all of a sudden now you can't use your gun anymore? Like, it may sound far-fetched, but like, it's not that far off if you really think about it. It's not that far off at all.
Angel, you good? You back in the game with us? Not yet.
No, not yet. That's a great point too. I mean, we may have to revisit the whole. I'm really looking at that scene from Terminator 2 with the underground Connex container full of guns that Sarah Connor had stashed up. I mean, that's looking more and more tempting by the day.
Yeah, exactly. Angel, when you're good, just jump
Joey,
in.
Oh, sorry, brother. I always reminded Joey of that first scene from The Matrix. I need guns.
Yep.
Lots of guns. That's what I want in my house. Just like a row of wall, an endless wall. That'd be great.
Yeah, and so it's just this idea between you have these multinational corporations getting on these boards pushing for these things, and I really feel like Ruger or Glock or any of these are probably, a couple years away from introducing, just like Ford, GM, and Chevy eventually came out with their own versions of electric cars. I feel like, depending on, talking about our main story, or Mondani, if you get some, Mondani obviously can't be president, but if you get a president and a Congress that, just like with red flag laws, is a great workaround on gun control. This is an amazing one. Yeah, guys, you have your Second Amendment. Don't worry about it. We just have this much more safer way. It's a smarter way. It's going to make sure that, people won't get hurt or all these other kinds of nonsensical things that people talk about it. So it's one of these things that is very scary. And Bellator, thank you for adding that to the conversation, because that really does lead us from one into another. And so it's very much the fact that, Glock bent the knee. Ruger, they're going after Ruger. Once Ruger bends the knee, because as Trad says, these guys don't have the money to compete with Everytown. Bloomberg is a billionaire, and so and then on top of the donations they get, they can just funnel money to these lawsuits, and they can sue Ruger in 4 different states. And now Ruger's going, okay, you know what? Fine. We'll make it whatever proof, or whatever the case may be. Or we'll go to the smart gun. Just leave us alone so we can continue to try and sell these kinds of things. Because in the end, outside of PSA, close to my heart, most of these guys are, and PSA is a business as well, but they're businesses. They want to make money. They want to sell contracts. They want to be able to provide for their shareholders and their stockholders. So it's a dangerous type of road that that we all saw with Glock kind of just being the first big domino to fall.
And it was a big domino.
It was. Angel, my man, are you in? We're gonna get you, buddy. We are gonna get you into the show. I guarantee it. But something is something. Okay. So we'll move on, and it's I don't want to say it's scary. I don't want to even put fear in people's eyes. I just want you all to be aware that the losing of these gun companies, I would still say, if you want to go buy a Glock or buy a Ruger or any of these kind of stuff, get them, but also get, as Joey said, maybe get a couple of extra barrels, some springs, some stuff like that, so you don't have to worry about it in 2 or 3 years, because barrels, they'll stick around forever. Springs will stick around forever. Backup triggers, sights, all these kinds of stuff. While we're in the Trump slump, while these things are available, while they're out there, I definitely think if you're going to grab a Glock or grab a Ruger or any of that frame, that design, let's just the striker fire design, the crucifix design that all of these companies essentially use, might be a good idea to right now stock up on them, just to not worry about what happens in a couple years. So
yeah, and prices are down right now on a lot of stuff across the gun world and the prepping world too in general, but especially in the guns. I mean, guns have really come down quite a bit. I mean, obviously you still have your big, H&Ks and Daniel Defense that still have astronomical prices, but I mean, you get what you pay for with those. I'm not down, cash and shade at any of those. I love the Daniel Defense 308, but you do need to make an investment into your arsenals. Make an investment now. Bite the bullet. We have tax season coming up, so if you do get a refund, maybe allocate so much of that money, if you can, towards updating and getting additional parts for your firearms.